the Roman Empire, we talk about the fall of the Roman Empire. Really, if you want to put a pin in a timeline of when that starts to happen is whenever they split the Roman Empire into Western and Eastern Roman Empire, because the economics of it were not equal. The Eastern Roman Empire, Constantinople, is over there near the Bosporus, which was the trading center, really, of Silk Road, because it was the gateway for Asian traders to get access to Western European markets. And so when they split the empire in two, you have the Western Roman Empire over here. Well, they kind of get it. You want an analogy, if people want to think about it, the North and the South.
I was about to say, like,
where you have a very wealthy, when you have very wealthy, begins to become highly developed, very educated one side, and then you have, here's Rome. You're Charleston. I'm sorry, you're the South, and there's a split. It wasn't lost on the people back then. They're like, well, this split's not really fair, and so you start to have these divisions, but there's some good things that come of that, because the Eastern Roman Empire becomes Byzantine. They preserved the works of Aristotle and Socrates and Galileo. The Arab scholars that were there helped preserve all those works of science and literature, so that whenever we get out of the Dark Ages and Italy starts to come back, because you had the Papal States, you have these different kingdoms, and it wasn't until the mid 1800s, in the early 1800s, that Italy becomes a unified country again, that we end up, thankfully, have those. So people are anti-Islam. We can thank the Muslim scholars for preserving this. And so, when people ask me these questions, I, like, well, what about this? What about that? I have a different perspective. I have a degree in history. It doesn't make me all-knowing, because I am not. I am not an expert on anything but a lot of bull crap and stuff. But I'm very careful about what I say.
Yeah.
And if I ever say things that are not correct, I have no problem being corrected, especially in the context of historical references that need to be accurate. But I look at it from the aspect of a historian, and I look at the pros and the cons, and I just I have a hard time talking history with people that don't have the same understanding. I don't mind answering questions, but it's when people aren't open to listening.
One of the things that James asked a while ago was about how did they get so big, and I think part of that was some of the alliances they made. And correct me if I'm wrong, but Harold the Great was one of the wealthiest, if not the wealthiest men in the world, because of the spice trade, and he essentially had all the spices. Well, they basically said, Harold, we'll let you keep your stuff. Just, throw some of that money our way and then they became alliances. And Harold had stone quarries. Harold had all of these things that the Romans took advantage of and used, because Harold,
very similar to today's government, and using like oligarchs or tech billionaires to fill in the gaps where the government can't.
Well, and look at the Medici family. We wouldn't have had the Renaissance without them. And if you're, and in Florence, it's all Medici all the time. It's the Medicis and Michelangelo. And so we didn't walk across that bridge where all the jewelry sellers are, that used to be the meat and fish market back in the day. But on that bridge, there's a it's not a tunnel, it's a walkway that's up above that bridge, because the Medicis had that built because they didn't want to walk around the common people. So they were able to go from their quarters over here to their places over here to do that. And so we're walking around and telling the kids this, and they're like, I wish we had been able to go to that bridge, because we went there 5 years ago, and it is really cool. Because the shopping there, it's touristy. You're going to pay higher prices. You're better off waiting until you get to the different parts of town. But when you look up and you see that, they're like, well, what's that? You're like, why is that thing on top up there? I said, well, it's the Medici Walkway, man. They didn't want to mingle with the common people. Well, how can they want to mingle with the common people? Because they were very rich. They were very wealthy. And you see the Medici name on a lot of things, and there's pros and cons to that. There's good and bad, because the Medicis, had the ear of the Pope, and they knew all these artists. And then it's funny because when we left Florence, our next stop was in Rome, and when you walk around the Vatican, you see the works of Raphael and Michelangelo and all these people that the Medicis helped introduce to the Catholic Church. Raphael's buried at the Pantheon. It's just it's really cool. I forget where we were. When we were in Turin, we need apparently the Pope is the only one that can determine when the shroud is brought out for display.
Oh wow!
So we did go by the church where they do display it, but it's just, it's just there's a lot of things that are involved with Italy, and when we're walking around, I have to remind myself, like, this is the epicenter of the Roman Empire, especially when we're in Rome, because you do see ruins everywhere. They're all over the place, and it's a constant reminder. And some of them are in better shape and been preserved better than others. We were talking about Circus Maximus down there. We talked about it last time. Circus Maximus is a concert venue now. But and when you look at it from overhead, you can still see, and when you're there, you can still see the outlines, the remnants of what used to be grandstands. They could fit 150,000 people in there.
That's insane.
That's where they killed Christians.
Wasn't like Rome got to be the size of 50 million people? I think something like that.
Yeah,
which
50 million?
in Athens, is that right? Is that number?
I don't know if it's. I think the Roman Empire probably had that.
Yeah, that's
that
what I'm
number
saying.
Of people. That because
not in Rome, but the Roman Empire. But it's just like
it's massively large. Think about the administration of that.
That was so.
We have cities that can't even minister their own cities.
When the killing of Christians,
there it is.
That was part of what I think was also what you said about the split, right? Romans started attacking Romans, and that used to not be the way. And so when Romans started attacking Romans, when you start attacking yourselves, and you can parallel that with America, we're so divisive and so divided right now that we just attack each other. Right now, maybe it's online. Sometimes it's in the streets, but it is happening.
I think it's quickly gone to the streets. There's the Ponte Vecchio. Yeah. They had their own walkway. Look at that.
They can walk around and look at the peasants.
To the Palazzo Vecchio. I'm telling you, if you ever get to go there, scroll back up. Go to the Uffizi Gallery. That's pretty cool. The Uffizi Gallery.
Oh, that's gorgeous.
Yeah.
That's one thing I think I would love to see so much going over there is just all the architecture.
There's a lot to see.
Oh, man. Just buildings that were built centuries and centuries ago.
And our trips over there are like vacation previews.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, and it's like teaching world history. It's a lot like teaching world history. I don't dive deep anymore into any particular topics because my job is to present an overview. Here's what happened. Here's the important things. We got, and I hate to say this, but we have to check boxes because there's so much to cover.
Yeah.
It's a preview. It's an overview. And if kids are more interested in it, they can go research on their own. Or when you get to college, like what I did, French Revolution, Napoleon, history of Russia.
Yeah.
Those are deeper dives into those areas. Far East Asia, comparing cultures, Japan and the U.S., things like that. The history of China. Those are the courses you can take when you get to college. In high school, it's an overview. I don't like teaching U.S. history. I'm not a fan. I don't like politicians telling me what I can and cannot teach because it makes us look bad. Our feelings get hurt, and let me
trying to control the narrative.
Yeah, let me do my job, and whenever we go to these places,
Rewrite history.
Talk to locals, and find out what's going on. Like the people in Turin who are pro demonstrating for Palestine. I've had some good conversations with locals in all the countries I go to, where I find out things and learn more context about places that we're at. And it's like the guy at the Titanic experience in the region. I think we're in the region of Cork in Ireland, and we walk in, and there's this guy standing over there. We get our ticket has a name on it, and your job is to find references to that name on the ticket and learn as much about them as possible. They were on the Titanic. So we walk in, there's this guy standing there, And I said, hey man, what's up? He goes, hey, how are y'all doing? I said, man, we're just on this tour. And he goes, oh, okay. I said, he had this whiskey barrel set up and had this whole thing. And I just saw him and he looked friendly. I just said something to him. And I said, well, man, I guess we're going to get this. He goes, do you like whiskey? Yes. And it started, we were there for like 15, 20 minutes listening to him talk about, he's like a 7th generation whiskey barrel maker. His family had whiskey barrels on the Titanic, and he had some whiskey barrels out there. And he goes, would y'all like a sample? And we're like, yeah. He goes, it's €5 each. And I was like, okay. And it was Irish whiskey, Redbreast 12-year-old Redbreast Irish whiskey, like the best, some of the best stuff I've ever had. And I said, man, that was really good. He goes, would you like another one? Yes, sir, I would. Please.
Yes, sir, give me another.
We're like Woody at Cheers over here, man. Just start serving us up.
I'd be like, how much for the bottle?
But yeah, I mean, but like just talking to him, he's a local. He goes, they allow me to come and set up here to educate people about, the importance of Irish whiskey to our country, and that the Titanic was not just a passenger ship. They were transporting goods, and
right.
And all that comes from
and bankers.
All that comes from, I guess, being Texan, like, hey man, what's up?
Yeah.
You're just talking to people, and and the same thing happens in Rome. We were in that Palazzo this summer where it's a nice, really nice building, and then there's this fountain where we were there 5 years ago, where this police officer told Rob and I the history behind the guy who designed the building and the guy that designed the statue, because they were rivals and they didn't like each other, and both of them wanted the building, and the real conservative guy won the building, and so his adversary was bound determined to win the fountain, and so he did, and he made the fountain very graphic with like naked bodies and stuff. And I was like, shut up, dude, you're kidding. He goes, no, I'm not.
That's funny.
Just from
the personal ego war.
Yeah, just from talking to them.
That's funny.
And what I found is that when you go to places, people are more than happy to talk about their history. It's just a matter of where you're at, because in Italy they'll talk to you about the Roman Empire and things like that, and you have a lot of local guides there. We've had some pretty good local guides, but they have good insight that we don't. They have it from an insider's viewpoint. We have it from an outsider's viewpoint. They don't really talk about Mussolini, but like we were in Lake Como the very first day in country, and who was I talking to? It may have been our tour director, Lavinia, or I don't think we had a local guy that day. I said, man, it should be nice to go to that spot here in town. She goes, what spot? I said, where Mussolini. She's like, oh. She goes, that spot. I said, yeah. She goes, oh, that's right, you teach world history. Because we talked about that, my students. So they it's funny because in that country they do teach about the dangers of fascism, but yet the fascist party again is on the rise. In large part because of their anti-immigrant stance. And Greece has stood up recently and has announced they turned away 5,000.
Did you see Poland yesterday marching in the streets against immigration?
Yeah.
Well, that's why you see so many of these things too hide under the guise of humanitarianism. And it's like we were talking about the people here that protest Palestine, or that are protesting for Palestine and stuff like that. It's like you were saying, you can go meet someone from Hamas and then tell me that you would do the same thing. It's like
Hamas.
We think we're doing it because of a humanitarian reason, because Palestine deserves to be there as well. It's like,
and it also makes you wonder how many of those are paid agitators and don't really care one way or another about Israel or Palestine.
But do they really deserve to be there?
No.
I mean, by birth,
that's a whole other podcast.
I mean, by birthright. I mean, and again, I mean, it's. I just find it interesting that the demographic in this country that supports an organization that would kill them.
Yeah.
Because I did tell that girl under the canopy in Turin, I said, so when does Hamas celebrate Pride Month? When do Palestinians? She goes, well, at the same time. I go, wrong. they kill LGBTQ people.
Yeah.
They'll throw you off a building.
Yeah, they will behead you.
Yeah.
They'll kill you. I said, but in Israel they do. They celebrate Pride Month. She's like, what? Oh, it's okay.
Oh, you didn't know, but now
it's
you do.
It's okay. I mean, and again, I think if more people understood what was going on and understood the history of that region and why it's so jacked up over there, and people need to, I'm not a big Bible thumper, but people, get in your Bible. The Bible's real. The Bible matches up with the historical timeline of the world. There are so many correlations, like, hey, by the way, there was a King Nebuchadnezzar. Yeah. And there was a Babylon. And
those people are all real.
There was a Pontius Pilate.
Yeah.
Like
Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, they're all real.
It's a history.
Those are real people. Yeah. You don't necessarily have to believe like we do, but you might want to look at some correlations.
People are so quick to dismiss it because we believe there's a deity involved in the creation of this history book. And because the history book points at a deity, and then immediately that discounts it. But it's still a history book written by people who actually lived.
Well, and the Roman Empire is mentioned in
the history.
Yeah, let's talk about that. So a lot of the conflict that's happening over there now obviously started after the crucifixion and the fall of the Roman Empire. But before that, when Rome controlled all of that area, how did they lose it? You said Christianity was involved in.
So Christianity's a small part of it, but a lot of it comes in with just the sheer administration of a large empire, and this is part of why they split the empire in two. Yeah. So you have an administrative center in the east, you have an administrative center in the west. We've seen how that doesn't work. Yeah, and not necessarily before then, but it's a pattern after that. That when you split, when you have two different.
So they got too big.
Basically. Yeah, it got too big, and when you think about it, and people got pretty comfortable in the Roman Empire of having these particular things, and when you start to run out of money, and you cut back services, and typically with groups of people, it implodes upon itself. So you look at us. Look at us. Look at our country, and there are correlations there. I mean, I personally think that we are we become a very selfish and egocentric society where, what's in it for me? What can I get? Yeah. Well, I think the government needs to do this. The government needs to do that. No, the government's job is to provide structure and order and protection. Their job is not to pay off your student loans. Their job is not to do, provide you with aid indefinitely till you get back on your feet. The government's role is not to provide you with this amount of money per child and you never go work. That's not what those programs were established for during the Great Depression. They were and I got news for people. The New Deal projects didn't work. World War II worked.
It pumped money.
It made people feel good about themselves. My granddad grew up during that time, and he told me, he goes, the New Deal was pretty cool because it got me a job, but it didn't get us out of depression. So when a country becomes, a country or empire gets too big, and the administration of that becomes too taxing, I mean, I look at, we can compare it to a lot of things. The majority of a school district's budget goes to salaries. So at what point if we look at our economy, look at their economy, at what point do you top out and you have to start all over? When can it not sustain itself? Because look at communism. Command economies don't work. Communism didn't work, and their economy wasn't a pure command economy. China had a command economy. It didn't work. So, at what point do we price ourselves out? Yeah. And at what point do we?
So, is it only an economic factor that's going to make an empire fall, or is it?
It's social, it's political.
Good versus evil factor kind of thing too. Like when a country gets so corrupt that both wings of the same bird are in bed together in the corruption, and they're taking money that's ruining the economy, or taking money from us to give to themselves,
or give to their special interest.
Are there revolts that have happened over time in the Roman Empire that were more than just money? Was it?
Well,
were
yeah,
there
I mean, there's
moral uprisings.
in different parts of the Roman Empire. I
I
mean,
think
this
that's
is
what
one
I'm
of the
getting at.
this is one of the things that was so, I guess, advantageous about their military. I mean, you didn't want to do things that would cause the Roman emperor to send the military in,
Mm-hmm.
because at one point the Roman army was
They just kill
the
everybody.
most feared group of people on the face of the earth. I mean, look at how
Kind
they're
of how we
they're-
are now.
Right.
Look at how their army. Look at how their guys were dressed. Man, look at their outfits, man. Just their outfits alone. Look how they marched in unison.
Mhm.
I mean, you see those cats coming down the walk. Whew, I'm going back in my house.
You can hear
I'm
them coming from miles
Yeah,
away.
and it's kind of like, a lot of it. I compare with the Mongols. The Mongols
right.
were so
Yeah.
efficient in what they did. A lot of times based on reputation alone. Ivan the Terrible had his group of men riding around the countryside wearing all black and riding on black horses. And if you didn't do what the Tsar said, here comes the henchman. It's the precursor to the KGB. Here comes these guys. You don't want to piss them off,
Mm-hmm.
because I mean, don't make me send my guys in there.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Don't make me tell my dad. Don't make me get my mama. That kind of stuff. And so with the Roman Empire, but eventually, again, we start to look at the decay from within,
Mm-hmm.
and I think that was a lot of Rome's problems. You have lack of proper administration. You have people, looking out for their own best interest and not the interest of
Their neighbor.
their neighbor, their country,
Yeah.
the empire, and you have people clamoring for power. Because how did Caesar die?
Yeah.
when
stabbed
you,
in the back.
when you're on top, it's stabbed in the back. When you're on top, people want to be there. And
Mhm.
throughout the history of the world, we see rulers get
Mhm.
displaced because of that. Jealousy is a real thing. And then when you have an empire this large, and back during that time period, you couldn't hop on a plane or a train and go somewhere pretty quick. So you had to have good administrators in those parts of the world where your empire is that you trust. And I think that was pretty hard back then.
And once
I mean,
once they start to break off, they become their own. They have their own army
they have
out
their
there.
own, yeah.
Well, you said it was
And they
pretty
have their
hard
own
back
people.
then, but you also look at it now. Like, how many people distrust their public servants? How many people distrust the people in charge?
All of them should
You
be
know.
all of them.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
If there's one person out there that says they trust the government, then they need to get their head checked.
Need to get
Yeah.
their head checked.